And I want to invite here 3 people who will share their opinion and their mistakes and the progress and the careers they made in the companies where they worked. First, I want to invite my good friend and an absolutely genius and honest person, Artur Mikhno. Thank you. So, hello. Yeah, and now I want to invite Antonina, Robotics, who's a co-founder and operational manager. And Dmytro Dubrovskyi, he wanted to come to us, but he begged his pardon. He's going to be joining us online because he's sick at home. So he's here, co-founder of Uklon company. I hope you all know this company. So I liked moderating this panel discussion because it's clear, the subject is clear. So Dmytro is here in the center, and I want to talk about 3 biggest mistakes that you had in the history of your company. So provide the most context. So probably there were reasons why you did what you did, so that our viewers could understand what's happening. Also, I would like to start with our online speakers, because these mixed meetings where somebody is on the TV, everybody is. And now, Dmytro, we start from you. So, could you share your experience now? Greetings, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, we can. Amazing. So I'm happy to be with you virtually. I'm sorry for not being able to attend, but I just decided to save you the risk of getting infections from me, whichever. So I'm going to try and put more substance. So I would focus on a different aspect, because at some point we were not looking for the best people, we were just looking for people. So when we were just growing, we thought it was enough to have mid-level specialists. So we thought, since we're a small Ukrainian company, we can't really afford too much staff and the best staff, and we didn't hire the best. And this is a big mistake, because sometimes the efficacy of the best specialist and the average specialist, the difference can constitute hundreds, and it could only at the same time mean just a double or triple salary. So when we stopped looking for just any staff, and we started aiming for higher echelon of the labor market to be able to afford the best of the best. And then the situation changed radically. So the strategy really worked.
У стартапа є можливість залучити найкращих, але
Startups don't always hire or can't always afford to hire the best. But still, in terms of investments, it's great where half of that money strengthens your team and helps you to hire the best. I can add a little bit. There's a book from Laszlo Bock. He describes basically what you say, word for word, that a great engineer can provide 100 times better performance, especially if we talk about IT solutions, where it's non-linear production. If we talk about, great cashier cannot increase the 100 times the revenue of the shop, but an engineer really can build 100 times better product. But the difference in the salary is not going to be so big. Yeah, thanks. For us, it was not even about engineering. It was about marketing. It was about PR and finance. Well, things that maybe are more academic. Although marketing is very creative work, but it's creative. So a good financial director, CFO, will help you strengthen the company by dozens, 100 times, other than just average financial manager who will just learn as they go. So you're asking me about mistakes. Yeah, 3 mistakes. So as a person with an engineering background, I've never paid much attention to marketing and sales. I always thought that you had to first create the best product and then people will learn about it themselves. That's wrong. B2B doesn't work like that. A good digital marketing with analysts, with the PR, with digitized sales, they create miracles. And I have an example. Let's not take international competitors, but let's just take local. Maybe you know there's a company on taxi in Kharkiv. At some point, the application, it was more functional, it was more convenient, it worked, it was more stable, but in terms of marketing, they had 0. They were very low in sales, and so they started moving to some regions of Ukraine, and we competed in Kharkiv, and we caught up in terms of technology. So that says that having a great product, it's not yet 100% of your success. The third mistake, I think, was the worst mistake that we did, is losing time. When we had the opportunity to grow quicker, somewhere from 2010, 2015, there was still no international players, but we already saw some potential. But we continued to grow locally. We were thinking we had some kind of regional authentic story. Nobody is going to come here. Everything works differently here. And so we remained in our own bubble. And then Uber came and showed that it works. So we had to act quicker. And so don't lose your time and learn from the foreign experience of your competitors and speed up, be faster. It's funny you mentioned Uber, because I compared brand requests of Uber and Uklon. So Uklon was very slow, and then Uber comes and Uklon explodes, and then Uber dies and Uklon is already scaled up. So competition is very stimulating in a good sense of the word for businesses to develop. I wanted to add, so it could be different. We could die and Uber would be here. Right, thank you, Dmytro, for answers. So we're not saying goodbye. We're still here. Antonina, your way, Deus Robotics is not was not paved in roses. It was very difficult, right? So you have, I hope, you have things to share with us. Yeah, thank you for this question, and I'm happy to see you here. Yeah, ODS Robotics, we are automating warehouses and logistics. So we did a lot of mistakes, but we wanted to share three main things that we did. So first mistake, when we started back in 2019, we were building the business that was very hard to scale. What does it mean? We were assembling our robots manually in our Kiev lab, and also we liked joking around it. Well, we are Deus Robotics, we are a Ferrari that are building craft automobile. Whereas Deus Robotics were doing that for some years. We achieved great results. We created 5 robot prototypes. We assembled more than 40 robots here in Kiev. We'll launch them, and more than 20 of them still work on our company's warehouses, but we understand that this kind of business approach is hard to scale up, not only in Ukraine, but also wherever in the world you are. Because our current customers, our potential customers, they want different robots. They want robots that are capable of delivering other functions, so we had to move quicker. And that's why we focus now on something that we do best, which is intellectual software. Well, robots are built by our partners, so that allows us to have 17 types of robots that we ship for our customers. So that was our mistake. But we learned that, and we would never be ourselves without it. A second mistake that we did as a startup, we didn't pay too much attention to such international programs like LMARCs. Let me give you some details. Can you think that you could have a customer like DPD Ukraine, which is the second in Britain and in Europe, company in logistics, through acceleration program that you have on email? And I think there are many startups that have that, and it's not a obvious method of attracting customers. So we didn't know anything about these kind of programs. We only started working with these kind of programs in 2023, and that was one of our mistakes, that we didn't understand it earlier. So what we're doing now, we're monitoring these kind of programs that are relevant for us. We are trying to read about it and submit applications. Of course, there are acceleration programs that help a lot. So LMARCs is a company that cooperates with different companies, Gymsharp, GPT, Coca-Cola, etc., and they're looking for smaller companies or not smaller companies. They're doing tenders and select the companies like ours, Deus Robotics, to resolve some specific problem. Like this case, there were about 100 companies, and so 5 finalists were selected. We were one of them, and the rest is history. So that's how we got our customer. So it's a lesson that tells you to be risky sometimes. Second mistake that we did at the very start, when we were building the company, when we were building our first team, we got people together who are fans of robotics. And of course, our main visionary is Pavlo. And we also had a strong engineering team. So we got them in Ukraine, and they're all, our core team were from a small lab in somewhere around here, HIC lab. And so we were building together, we were building first prototypes together, and only years later we realized that it was a mistake to not engage international laboratories, small and big, like universities. Because now we have universities coming to us, like the recent times it was from Colombia, where there were students who want to do something with us. And we realized that if back then, in 2019, we did an open call experience exchange, because it's interesting, not only in Ukraine, it's all over the world. And all over the world there are talented people, and you don't need, not necessarily to pay always for that. We could exchange our experience and they could exchange their experience. But again, we managed to do it on our own. So in order to help other companies, we want to initiate robotechnical labs to give the students and young people who are into robotics, who want to learn, this is the kind of thing we would recommend to avoid doing. So to sum it up, first of all, it's the story about, think about how to scale up the business. Even if you build one tower that pumps your oil, how to build 10, 100. And thirdly is go worldwide, meaning looking for customers. Corporation has always have a bigger problem. They are hard to innovate. They have a policy, so that's why they go to incubators and they look for talented people who can solve their problems. So you can attract them as customers, like Antonina said. And the third, the creation is always co-creation. And the earlier you go into the world, the more chance you will find people who have the shared spirit.
Thank you so much. Artur, it's your time now. Can you repeat the question? So your company is 20 years. You're also a dinosaur. Yes, you were born in the same epoch that we were. So tell us, please, which were your 3 biggest mistakes in these 20 years that the Work.ua company had? I asked this question not because I didn't remember the question. It's just that on my way, you wrote me yesterday that you wanted to ask me this question, and I started thinking what to answer. You know, I wanted to highlight that we are already 20 years old, even though it doesn't feel like it. Well, I feel like My startup spirit is still alive. I know. Yeah, you do know. But for 20 years, that's a lot of time anyway, and you start thinking more and maybe not so quickly answer like before, even though you try to have a high level of speed. To be able to answer some question, you have to understand the question. But this question had the word mistake. And we have to realize, do we have the same understanding of the word mistake? I started to think about it and I thought, what is mistake? Mistake in relation to what? In regard to what? This was my reflection yesterday and today in the morning, because everything depends a lot upon what we are building up and what our goals are. And the analysis, you have just made the speech presentation. You spoke about the path of the company and how you were changing the key answer to the question why. Altogether, the change of why is also the life path. Without changing it, this is not possible. So it looks like the mistake on some level can be not a mistake. If we have done the rethinking of what we want from the company and from the life, and the stage I am in today, just like most people who's 40 plus, I'm trying to realize what I want from life. Don't look at me, I'm 39. Okay, I see. You were even faster than me. So, what does this lead to? I'm thinking now that until the life is not over and there is no final peak before death, I want to realize whether it was a mistake or not. But I think it's impossible because we never know why any testing or any decision that we made and what it can lead to in the wider range or in the biggest picture rather than some short-term one. In fact, that we can imagine. And this is the question that often asked the startuppers. They even have the fuck-up nights where they discuss this. And of course, you can say that some action, even if the company shut down, that it was a mistake. If we had done any otherwise, then it wouldn't end. But it may only seem to be a mistake. But altogether, that's a wonderful experience. Without going through that experience, without having gotten that understanding, maybe the next door, any other door would not be open. Maybe it seems like you're screwed right now. Maybe it seems like our country that is going through the war now, and that we are now in this moment. Is it a mistake due to some of our actions, or is it the only chance for us to proceed to another level? And maybe we could even be grateful that we can now create this future. Things that I used to consider to be mistakes. For example, in the beginning of our development, when our company was not even a year long, and we decided that we wanted to create the employment website because it was 2001 back then, and websites, most of websites, they were some static page that would have 5 items, but we already learned to do programming. We wanted to show, how much we could do, but nobody was ready to pay for this. And then we decided that we will create the employment website in Dnipro city. and all businesses would come there to place the job openings, and the seekers will come there and they will ask who did that. They would say the reactor company did it, and everybody will find out about us. But we were starting our business in Dnipro. That's why we bought the domain DP.UA, and we chose the title Trud.ua, which is labor UA, because this domain was free of charge and we didn't have to pay for it. We used to be an efficient company. We didn't want to spend more. So, and we wanted to create this business in Dnipro. And I guess maybe 5 years later, when this website, I mean, we were supporting this, maybe spent half an hour a day to moderate it. But when it got into the ratings of the most well-known websites in Ukraine, it was in top 15 with the domain DP.UA, and with the support of half an hour for 24 hours, we were just thinking, well, and what could it, I mean, what if we took another domain? Because we were the ambitious guys. Even though we had the DP.UA, we did place all the locations, and we found out that Kyiv can be placed on DP.UA domain, Lviv and Odessa and Kharkiv, and we thought, and what if it was com.ua domain? That would have been amazing. So the conclusion is to be more ambitious and to sometimes invest more in the projects you are creating. So are you looking, have you come here to look for money from investors for the domain com.ua? But then a few years later, I read the book of the commissaire, Bringing Happiness. And I realized that Tony Shea created MSN, who sold M&A with $300 million. And I realized that at that same time in Dnipro city, we had the same through DP.UA, which was a system which, from the point of view of the product, was equal. And the only thing that we lacked were the ambitions to do to do it in the world, but not in Dnipro, not in Ukraine, but maybe in the world. And we lacked certain experience in this life. Then I had an interesting experience. For 6 or 7 years, I worked in 2 states, I would say, in Ukraine and Canada, and it changed me a lot because I realized that people there do not differ from us at all. They're not smarter there, because it always seems to us that they are a lot smarter because they have built such countries and such economies. And that's the way we were also brought up, thinking like this. But they're not smarter than us, and they're not even more ambitious than us. It's just that they operate in another ecosystem. And it seems like it was a mistake, but an interesting thing, if we had created something else back then, what would it mean today? Would I be next to Elon Musk in some platform, or would I already run out of the internal strength? Because I would have made money, but this money would be a lot, but the ecosystem of Canada would not be attractive for me, and I guess I would have sold my business and go and bought some yacht in Dominicana, and maybe I would be sad now a lot more. So I sincerely do not know what mistake is and what is a non-mistake. Because if any one of you feels inspiration now to live your lives, then I think that any decision of yours can ever be seen as a mistake. Another thing that looks like a mistake, I still didn't go a single time in Silicon Valley. And it seems like if I had gone there 15 years ago, and everything would have changed and it would have been some other way. But on the other hand, I didn't go there. No, but if to speak about Work.ua product, that is the leader in the market, and from the point of view of technology, it's one of the best ones in the world. Roma, of course, can say this. But indeed, it's a good technological product, very powerful one. But we do not enter the external market because Personally, I do not have a feeling that my heart is there. I don't want to spend my life just to make more money. Moreover, we can't bring some super cool technology there. We can, of course, push and pull in the markets, but what for? Why are you establishing this business? What is the aim? And I guess every one of us can have their own answer to this question. I still don't see this as a mistake in regard to today, because if I hadn't done it then, maybe if I don't do it now, I will see this as a mistake in the next 5 years. I don't know, but I do plan to take a visit to Silicon Valley just because of curiosity. And the third most provocative one. At a certain moment when we grew up, we started building up the systemic company, implementing different processes, becoming very earnest, and having established the board of directors and so on. And I realized that that was the moment when our company, in my opinion, started losing its life, and it started losing its spirit that has created it. Perhaps it could have continued living for a very long time and given a much better interest rate than any other bank, and maybe it could be providing for my elderly life. But I realized the things that are important for me in my life, and that is that my company started transforming into the company from where I wanted to leave. And it's nobody's fault. This was just the life experience. Mistake or not? I guess not. Because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have this confidence now that there's another way. I would still be in the crossroads, listening to different people, reading different books. But mostly everyone says that you have to build up a systemic company, and then they also say that you have to sell it to a strategic investor, and this is the best path. But I disagree that businesses are established or created just to make money. It seems to me that the majority of people, like the real ones, they create business because they can't do it any otherwise. Just like Roma said today, because we're engineers, we are inventing something and then we are implementing it. So the best possible option of this life is what? To sell it then to someone? I don't know, but my relation to business is like as a child of mine. So we create something, we are inspired by it. Of course, we can let them go to the adulthood, but I think letting go and selling, these are two different things. Letting it go, but still for it to exist in the same spirit, not to turn this child into a regulated brick, but to watch them still being inspired, that is the coolest thing. That's why two mistakes, real mistakes, that I view as mistakes now when I think that I should have done more, are the following. We started developing training and developing the outlook in the construction of our company too late. So we were focused on the product, and those who were inspired, they were inspired. But it's important to have a single context, to be inspired by the joint things, both on the stage of employment and the stage of the further development. Because if only 2 or 3 persons are developing and reading books and discussing something, but other part of team is just fulfilling some functions, there will not be a joint story. So the joint trainings, development, world outlook construction, the philosophical one maybe, some discussions, something that maybe is not even product related, but then that's when you have this common inspiration and energy. And also, it seems to me that the company at a certain point of time has lost one value, which is joyful and engaging. At some point of time, we have become too serious. And during the last year, when we got guitars and started creating and started acting in a more crazy way, that is something that brings us back to life. And I think that we will correct the mistake and will add more joy. Thank you, Artur, for your answer. I knew that your answer would not be simple or straightforward, so thank you so much for the philosophy of the Stoic philosophy that says that you never know where your path is taking you. So don't feel upset. Don't bother if you don't know where this path is taking you. And you know, the biggest IT incubator in the world, and they're asking such questions. So they actually see that there are thousands of startups, and they always were interested to what differs the successful startup company from unsuccessful one. What is charisma, intellect, being able to sell? And no, they only mentioned one trait that differs the winners from those who break, and that is resilience. And what is resilience? Resilience, that is the capability to walk after you fall, get up and not lose the enthusiasm. So I would like to thank all of our speakers. Thank you for sharing your stories. They are always very, sincere, and that's something that you have been through. So I wish you success. Make your mistakes, but never feel upset about them. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was very well grounded. Yes, we shouldn't get upset, and we don't plan to do so, but what is our plan? Thank you. It was very engaging.